Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today is the last day of February of 2023. Unbelievable how fast time just flies by when we're all having fun and working hard. Today, I'm really excited because when it comes to pitching and putting pitch decks together and really formulating your strategy around fundraising, we have a genius with us from Pitch Genius. Jasmine Ober has been a mentor and a friend of the Preccelerator almost from the beginning, I believe, as we go into our 10th year this year. Unbelievable that this program's been around that long. We've had 51 companies go through our Preccelerator. We have an open enrollment, so we're always looking for new companies to come in. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me and chat, and we can set up a time to get together. So with that, our workshop today is on pitch tips to get you funded in today's market. And that's always an interesting delimiter is today's market, because we all have our thoughts of what that means and how we position ourselves in fundraising. So with great interest, I'm looking forward to hearing Jasmine's wisdom. And just some housekeeping. If you have questions, please put them in chat. We'll save them to the end, and then I'll moderate those questions towards the end. And we're going to go probably about an hour here today. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to Jasmine Ober. Jasmine, you're up.
Thank you so much, Len. Thank you for having me and for everyone tuning in. So I'm going to first just build a little rapport with everyone, because I want you to understand the context and really where this wisdom is coming from. Okay, we have primarily worked with pre-seed, seed, and Series A companies for the past 8 years to prepare them to pitch and for due diligence. 44.7% of our clients have successfully raised because we put so much effort into that preparation process. I am here today to share with you how you can prepare for that fundraising process and what are the pitch tips that are going to help you get fully prepared within today's market that is so competitive now when it comes to new deals landing on the desks of investors. And I really want to reiterate, how are we so successful? Why are we so successful? It's, again, because we put our investment, we put our time into really preparing our founders before they pitch, and you all can do the same, is figure out and spend time during this workshop asking the questions that you need to ask and figuring out what are all the assets are that you need to prepare to pitch. And then we'll do some deep diving into why market sizing is so important, why the financial model is so important, and what does it even mean to tell the story with those assets. So I also want to provide some context, okay? Because there is so much information online as to how to build the right deck, the perfect 12 slides that you need, the only 12 slides that you need, the boilerplate template that everybody is kind of copying and going after, the Airbnb deck that everybody wants to emulate and lean into. At the end of the day, the pitch deck was birthed out of business plans, right? And out of the dot-com boom era, where we had so many new investment opportunities that investors were like, you know what, forget it. I don't want to see your 40 to 80 page business plan anymore. Just provide me with a pitch deck, okay? Because I want to go through 20 deals at a time, 40 deals at a time, and really decide which are the best founders that I want to set up a meeting with, okay? So that's why the pitch deck even exists in the first place. And since then, right, there was a template that was birthed, and then kind of like a standard way of doing it, and everybody kept following that single format. In today's market, I'm going to encourage all of you, and I'm going to show all of you this is my big pitch tip, is yes, to build a deck that works within the confines of what the investor is expecting. But again, because it's so much more competitive, and because pitch decks are looking so good these days, it's really important for you to do it a little different, to be unique, to stand out. And that is also what we do at Pitch Genius, is that Our methodology for pitching investors, again, is within the confines of what the investor is expecting, but we like to push the envelope. We like to tell interesting stories. At the end of the day, we do it differently, and so should you.
How are you? You're doing all right.
Folks, if you could mute yourself, that would be preferable. Thank you.
Not right now, probably not.
No, you should do that right now.
We do it later this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
All right, I'll get rid of this. I'm sorry. I don't know who it is.
Don't be sorry. That's all good.
Okay. And I would say 4 o'clock this afternoon, my time, or any time.
Done.
Okay, cool. And yeah, let's bring it back to why we're doing things so differently. Yes, okay, because it's so competitive in today's market. You really want to stand out. You really want to tell a unique story, and everybody now is harping on like, well, what's the right story to tell? The right story to tell is your unique story. And again, I think ultimately the biggest thing I want you to walk away with, and that I want to keep coming back to, is the fact that the more you prepare and know how to prepare for this pitch within today's market, and the more unique and creative you can make it, the more you'll stand out, the better your fundraising will go, and hopefully the faster you can close your round. So let's keep going. I kind of wanted to provide a 360 like bird's eye view of how fundraising even works, okay? Because I know everybody that's joining this call is coming from different walks of life. Maybe you've raised before, maybe you have not raised before. If you haven't raised before, these are the general expectations you can have for how fundraising is going to go and how you're meeting with an investor. Okay, first, you are going to reach out to investors. The way that you do your reach out is you're going to want to build an investor list. Find investors that are actually going to invest in your space, your stage. They have deep enough pockets for your specific venture. You know, there are investors that only invest in early stage companies, and then there are venture capitalists, right? Which every founder, when they first come to fundraising, thinks that they need to meet VCs and venture capitalists, but most venture capitalists are looking for later stage companies, although there are some VCs that focus on early stage. So it's just to say that a part of the general expectation is like you're going to have to sit and build a pipeline of investors that actually would invest in your deal, in your space, at your stage. Okay, then yes, you're going to want to email your pitch deck if they are interested. I don't recommend just emailing your pitch deck to anyone and everyone. Investors generally don't like that, right? If they don't know you and if they don't like you, if they don't know you, then they certainly have no reason to like you or to open your deck. Don't just email, them content to read and expect them to spend the time and energy actually focusing on the deck. So you really want to get some kind of buy-in or a warm introduction before you send that pitch deck. Let's say the investor is like, you know what? Loved your intro. Thank you for sending the deck. I'd love to meet with you. Then you're going to do a pitch over Zoom or in person. Zoom is actually much more common these days, obviously. And let's say that pitch goes really, really well. Then you're going to go into what's called the due diligence process. Okay, this is where the investor, if it's a savvy investor and an experienced investor, they're going to provide you with a long list of like super hard hitting questions, right? Really digging into all of the risk that is involved in this particular market and or investment opportunity. Digging into who your founders are and financial history and more specific details around your execution strategy and why you chose to approach the market that way and what kind of research you've done. So they're gonna just dig deep, right? So everybody is kind of after this deck that like looks really pretty and sounds really good, but ultimately the investor is going to go 3 layers deep during due diligence and call BS on anything that isn't really sound, anything that isn't thought through, anything that isn't strategic, right? And doesn't have like real merit. So I bring this up because often, founders come to me and they're like, we need to raise $3 million to build the entire, and it's like, okay, how'd you come up with that number? How much is it actually going to cost to build the full product? And then what are all the other associated costs around getting the product to market? Because you're saying you want to build the product and launch, right? And bring it to market. How did you arrive at 3 million? And the answer, right? If the founder is inexperienced, which again is totally fine, they're fundraising for the first time, but the answer usually is, I don't know. It just sounds like enough money that would get me to where I need. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to fly, right? If you're going to go to an investor and ask for $3 million and your response to, I need $3 million because it's how much I think I need, it's like, all right, like I'm not really a strong pitch, right? Like you could have the best deck, the best story in the entire world, the best idea, and your pitch is just going to plummet the second that you don't have substance behind your use of funds or how much you're raising or your financial model, for instance. Okay. And then hopefully due diligence goes well, and then they're going to provide you with a term sheet that you're going to go ahead and negotiate, but you are not going to negotiate it. Okay. You're going to have an experienced startup lawyer or startup firm that you're working with, such as Stubbs, Alderton, and Marklees, to help you negotiate those terms. It's not something you should do by yourself at all, ever, under no circumstances, okay? But that's what you can expect if you get this far in the process. It's that you're gonna want a startup lawyer on your side. That is, and I say a startup lawyer that's experienced in negotiating these types of term deals, because not all lawyers have experience. All lawyers could put a contract together for this type of deal and like understand the numbers, but it's really the experience that is going to protect you in that situation, and it's going to protect you in that situation, and just give you the ability to negotiate terms that are fair to you and fair to the investor as well. Okay, so how do we prepare for fundraising? Really? Please.
Just a quick question on that timeline.
Yes.
What is the fastest you've seen this process happen, and what's the average time? Because I think setting those expectations is really important.
100%. If you've been, okay, so from reach out to getting a term sheet, or from building your, okay, so let's put this into perspective. To prepare for fundraising, which we're going to go over in the next slide, can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks if you're outsourcing it, and it can take anywhere from like 8 to 16 weeks if you're preparing all of these assets first. Okay, so if you're like, I want to raise capital, I really need to get started, like know that you're already kind of like anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks behind from actually being ready to approach investors, right? You don't want to just jump into investor conversations without being prepared. So there's that. Once you are actually prepared and you start doing your outreach, the fastest would be, okay, I've seen deals close into 20 days, but that's with experienced founders who have made exits in the past. They have really strong investor network. These are investors that are just like waiting for that founder to launch something new so they can invest in it, right? So it can go that fast if you have this network. If you have no network, you're doing this for the very first time, you're kind of starting from the ground up, it can take anywhere from 3 to 8 months. Sometimes it takes 12 months. And again, what prolongs the process is either like the lack of preparedness on your part or traction, right? Like if you're, again, I have to imagine we're talking to a group of early stage startups, and if your traction does not look bright enough to the investor for their level, for the level of risk that they're really willing to stomach, then that can prolong your fundraising process as well, because you're going to constantly get the, okay, this is a fantastic idea, but please come back to me when you've, you know, hit this new revenue milestone, or you've hit this ARR, or whatever it is. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, how to prepare for fundraising. Okay, I've added more words to the screen than not, because I expect all of you to take screenshots, as everybody does during presentations like this. And that's okay. I want you to walk away with, like, again, the right expectations for how this is going to go and what you need to focus on preparing. Your execution strategy comes first, right? So it is figuring out what are you going to raise the money for, how you're going to execute on that money, how you're going to spend that money, how are you going to develop the product, who are you going to develop the product with. Having all of the answers to how you're actually going to grow this company and what you're going to spend this money on comes first, 100% of the time. You need to have a solid execution strategy for that funding. And stop there. Now, let's say you have the execution strategy. You're like, yeah, I love my company. I feel like this is scalable. I know how I want to scale it. I've thought through the strategies for going to market or growing it or hiring a team. Like, I know all of the pieces that I need to get from point A to point B. And I want to raise funding to accomplish my path that I clearly see, my business plan that I see from point A, where I am today, to point B, where I'll be 12 to 16 to 24 months from now with this funding. Okay, so let's say you have all that in place. Your market research actually is kind of tied to that. So I won't say like, wait to do your market research. Obviously, like, market research is hopefully something you did before you even started your business. But let's say your execution strategy is in place and you're ready to put a deck together. Refreshing your market research and doing market sizing are going to be critical to tell your story about what the market opportunity is and to show your investor how large the opportunity is, right? That's all market sizing is. Can you size the market for the investors so they have an outlook on how large the market is, what their ROI, if their ROI is actually just secure, right? It's not going to tell them what their ROI is going to be. It just tells them like, the likelihood of receiving a return on this investment is higher because the market is growing fast and the market opportunity is large enough and the market size is large enough, right? When you have these three assets in place, building your financial model is also something that you're probably ready to do, right? Building a full financial model around the execution strategy you have in mind, the total raise amount that you need to arrive to, right? The by going through the exercise of building your financial model, you will be able to arrive at the number you actually need to raise. Okay, I hope that's super clear. Nobody raises capital and just comes up with a number. You right, like there are, I will say this, once you hit like, no, I won't even say that. I don't think that's true. You, especially at the early stages, the way you arrive at how much you need to raise is by working on your financial model and going through the exercise. That's it. You can tie, if you're working with, and I suggest you do, if you are working with a financial modeler, because I don't recommend figuring out how to build financial models if you don't know how to do that yourself. If you're working with a financial modeler, okay, there is a way to tie the market research data and your market sizing data and assumptions, and certainly your execution strategy and data and assumptions all into the financial model, right? And so now you have all of the data, all of the information you need to tell a good story within your pitch, but also to tell a good story within your financial model. and they mirror each other. They're the exact same thing, right? What you are presenting in your pitch deck, in your business plan to the investor, is to say, hey, Mr. Investor, this is the company that we have. I think it's fantastic. This is how we're going to grow. This is how we're going to execute on going to market. This is how we're going to build the product, whatever. All of the information about your business plan. The financial model tells that same exact story, just within numbers. Okay. And what else do you want to prepare? What are the assets that you want to build? I highly recommend building multiple pitch decks. Okay, so again, coming back to all of the information that's online, the only 12 slides that you need, it's not true. You don't need just 12 slides. Okay, you might start with pitching 12 slides, which is great, and then you're going to have an investor meeting, right? Let's go back to the timeline. If you know that you need a deck to email to investors, then you know you need a pitch deck, a short pitch deck, right? Because this is the teaser deck. This is just something to like rope the investor in. You know that you need a version of your pitch that is shorter, maybe just 12 slides, but also stands alone, right? Because you're emailing. Every slide needs to read and stand alone. Like it needs to read like a story from beginning to end, as if you weren't there to verbally explain anything. So, and it needs to be persuasive enough for that investor to say, hey, you know what? Yes, I want to meet you in person, or I want to meet you in, right? So that's one version of your pitch to overcome the second milestone on this time here, is to be able to email that deck to the investor. Another version of the pitch is the pitch that you're going to use for that Zoom meeting or for that in-person meeting. Or you can also just skip the deck altogether. Some founders said, I actually don't even want to use the deck during the meeting. And that, if that's your preferred style, it's totally fine and great. But for that in-person pitch or Zoom meeting, a presentation version of the deck is going to be much more valuable than the teaser deck that you've already emailed to the investor, you've already shown to them, right? Like, are you going to use the same presentation twice? Like, are you going to basically present the presentation you've already emailed to them? I don't think it makes any sense, right? You're going to want something that's a little longer, that's different, that provides more information, more color. So that's another version of your pitch. Once you get to the due diligence stage, okay, they will also probably ask for your quote unquote full deck. Okay, this is not 12 slides. Your full deck is like all the information that they want and that they need to understand what you're raising money for. So that's 3 versions I just shared with you right there. Some founders, my recommendation is to just really start with those 3. I think, you know, there's only so much more you can prepare for. I don't recommend preparing like a never-ending amount of appendix slides to really granularly break down like everything about your product and your technology. You know, maybe a tech stack slide or whatever. But because ultimately, with every investor you meet, they're going to ask for new information or different information, or they'll say something like, "Oh, can you include a slide that shows this?" Or "Can you provide us something that digs deeper into your product?" And then you can, of course, continue to build slides. But just those 3 versions, I think, will suffice. Okay, so we've talked about multiple pitch decks. And then your data room. So I want to talk about your data room because it's, again, like so many of these pitch deck workshops just focus on the pitch deck, but I want to bring to your awareness what it looks like when the investor goes 3 layers deep. Once you get to that final, or the second to last milestone here, where you're doing due diligence with the investor, right? They provide you with this long list of questions, but ultimately they will also ask you to provide them access to your data room. Okay. What is the data room? Data room is, there are softwares that exist where you can like very beautifully have your market sizing spreadsheet and have maybe some market research to share with them, and maybe like a full product development plan, but it's like additional assets that and your financial model, right? Your financial model is in there, but it's just all the additional information that either the investor is asking for that you've already prepared. So to make it easy on the investor's life to go through your layers deep. And so when you, what was I gonna say? So when Len brings up like, how long does fundraising take? My opinion, and again, this is why we exist, is the more you prepare on the front end, the faster your fundraising process goes. And this is why I'm kind of bringing this to light and bringing this to your awareness, because I think it's always best to be prepared to know that that data room is going to be a thing, right? It's going to be a conversation. It's going to be something that they ask for, versus getting there and then panicking and being like, oh man, like I didn't know they were going to ask for all this information. And this is exactly what happens typically when a founder who is raising for the first time reaches due diligence. They panic, they scramble for like a week to 2 weeks to get all this information together, get it all organized, and get it to the investor before he or she becomes a full lead. Does not have to be that way, right? It's like the most stressful 2 weeks, and felt like, yeah. Anyways, founders often reach out to us in that very moment to say, and it's funny, actually, it happened a couple weeks ago. A good friend referred this founder to me, and oh man, they had such a good business, and they were super early, but it didn't matter. Like they caught this investor's interest, pitch deck was good enough, but then they provided this long list of things they needed to do their due diligence. And they came to me and they were like, Jasmine, like, we don't even know what these questions mean. We don't know how to answer them. We don't know why we're raising $3 million. It was just a number we put out there. I say all this because I want you to be prepared and have that foresight, and to know what you are really getting yourself into, right? It's like the pitch deck is one barrier, but really like let's look at the full journey that takes place so you can be prepared. Okay, let's keep going. What comes next in preparation? I think, whether it's never too early to start networking and developing relationships. Okay, it really is never too early to start building that investor list. I don't think it's too early to build a list of potential hires, right? Like you're really seriously going to raise funds. You're probably going to need to hire people, maybe not. Identifying who those people are going to be early on, I highly recommend. I think it's a major plus for the investor as well, that you had the foresight to just be that much farther ahead than maybe some other founders who all they said was like, yeah, we're going to need to hire 2 developers, right? And they're going to cost about this much. Like imagine if you had the forethought to actually identify who those people were, and bring them onto your management team as, potential hires once we raise this funding. So I never think it's too early to do this type of networking and really gather your team, gather your list of investors, and figure out how to turn cold outreach into warm outreach using LinkedIn. And then the last way you can prepare, again, is just being ready for that due diligence, being able to talk numbers, and being prepared with that startup lawyer. So if they do provide a term sheet, you're able to negotiate terms with them. Okay. There we go. Okay, sweet. So again, all to say, know thy options for preparing to pitch investors. Okay. And I really wanted to make this point because I feel like founders at the early stage, they have misconceptions on how it works. And I want to reset expectations now. First of all, fundraising is expensive. Okay. You're either sacrificing money, equity, or time to make it happen. And which is exactly why Len asked that question. Can you talk about how long it takes to fundraise and to close the deal. Again, if it's your first time raising, it can take anywhere, typically from 3 all the way to 12 months, sometimes more. Again, it really just depends on the growth and trajectory of your early stage startup. Okay, and so what are thy options? You can certainly outsource them. Again, if you don't know how to build a financial model, I highly recommend you don't spend the time learning how to do it, right? And I also don't recommend just putting together a revenue projection, which yes, anybody can really do. And we'll talk about that in more detail later. You could join an accelerator, such as the Preccelerator, that's going to, in exchange for equity, provide you full support with this entire process. You can also learn how to do different parts yourself. Yes, invest that time, find the right resources, learn how to do it yourself, and start pitching. That's not impossible, right? Like if you don't have the means to outsource it, or you only have the means to outsource pieces of it, that's totally fine. Or again, if you have the ability to join an accelerator or the Preccelerator, then even better, because you get that hand holding and you get that support that's needed to actually meet with investors, and you get a guaranteed exposure to investors on that demo day. So know thy options, reset expectations, know what you're going to do yourself, know what you're going to outsource. Definitely, it's not important for you to know how to do everything. If you outsource your financial model, it's certainly important for you to know how your model works. And it's certainly important for you to be able to walk the investor through that model and be able to pitch it and pitch the story that the model is expressing. But again, don't feel like you need to learn how to do everything yourself. It's not true, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of skill set that you really don't need. Okay, cool. So let's switch gears and talk about why market sizing is so important. So I mentioned earlier that we do things differently at Pitch Genius, okay? And I recently worked with a colleague, a very close colleague, who teaches at universities, who saw our market sizing and was like, I think this is incorrect. This is not how we teach it in school. This is not the standard way of doing things, and I think it's incorrect. And he provided some additional resources, which I really appreciated. And I looked at them and I said, hey, like, this is a totally valid way to size your market opportunity. It's also just one way to size your market opportunity. Okay. And there is no one right way to size your market. There is no one right way to size your market. It's simply a tool that you get to use to communicate how you're going to capture new markets, how you're going to enter the market, how large the market is. It's just a tool for communication. Okay, that's all it is. I've never had a client come back to us and say, I showed my market sizing to the investor and he said you didn't do it right. Like, there's no one right way to do it, and I implore you to use it honestly as a storytelling tool. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's start to dig in here. So what is market sizing? First of all, the way you're going to want to size your market opportunity is this expectation is to size your market into TAM, SAM, and SOM, 100%. Okay, so if you just have a TAM number, you have like a starting point, but that's not enough. You definitely want to size your market into TAM, SAM, and SOM. Those are what the acronyms mean. I don't need to go over it, okay? Why is market sizing so important? We touched on this earlier. It communicates that the market is large enough for the investor to receive a return on their investment. Okay, that's it. Now, the most common way to size the market opportunity is by communicating potential revenue that you will achieve. Okay, so this was the traditional information that this professor friend of mine shared with me. And again, I really appreciated it. It's absolutely a way that you can size your market opportunity, but it's not the only way. And personally, for me, I think it's actually slightly boring to do it this way. Everybody talks about like, oh, do I need the financial model, or do I really need to size the market because it's just a bunch of hot air, right? Well, I'll tell you this, market sizing becomes hot air when it's not based in some kind of reality. And revenue projections alone, right? If you think you have a quote unquote financial model and all you have is revenue projections, yes, that is certainly hot air. Okay. Like it's not based in reality. It's not based in additional key assumptions and key risks that need to be mitigated. It doesn't include the full picture that the investor needs to see and wants to see. Okay. So yes, you can certainly size your market by sharing with the investor today's potential revenue that you're able to go after, your SOM, total potential revenue that you see for your business as a whole, and then the TAM, which is total revenue that's being generated within the massive market, right? Which at the end of the day is just like some large $1 billion number or $100 million number that you may or may never go after as a company. And again, to me, feels like a little irrelevant. Like I would have rather sized the TAM to make it even more relevant. And I'll explain that out in a second. So, okay, now that we know that you can communicate the potential revenues you will achieve with your TAM, SAM, and SOM, let's also talk about how you can also communicate total spending by geographic area, right? You can say, let's say a part of your story and a part of your market entry strategy that you've built into the financial model is that, hey, we're based in California and we've launched in California and we're really owning this. Okay, let's figure out what the total spending is of that product within California. That can be your serviceable attainable market, right? Obviously, you're not capturing all of it. That's fine. But really, how much total spending is happening in California for that specific market? Really, really strong number. Okay, this would be fantastic if you could really size that. And most of the time you can. It depends on what available information is online or market research you have access to. But again, I think it takes, and we think at Pitch Genius, it tells a much stronger story when you're able to really base your market sizing into reality. And if you're a California-based startup and you're like crushing it in California and you want to show that your SOM is right, this is how much total spending is happening in the market that we're already in, and it's more than $100 million, the investor is going to be stoked. And it tells a fantastic story. Len, did you want to ask the question?
I think where people miss the mark in doing this is really focusing on the SOM. And I see the obtainable market sometimes being over exaggerated. And it really should be, what do you think you can do in the next 1 to 3 years in revenues? And, when I see, $1 billion in SOM, what that tells me is that the entrepreneur or the founder that put this together don't know what they're talking about.
Totally.
And these little pitfalls of naivety that show up on decks or in communications are the things that will turn off an investor.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. It's true. And it's also not information to just know for the investor, right? It's good information for you to know for yourself. This is an investment that you are investing into this market as well, your blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, the naivety, how naive it seems, or your market sizing seems to the investor, will turn them off. And one way, again, there's multiple ways to do your market sizing to avoid that conversation. Yeah. And again, like if all you have is a TAM, it's not enough. Really figuring out where your SOM is way better. And I love that perspective. You mentioned 1 to 3 years. That's something that we preach during our trainings as well, is like, imagine your SOM is either the market you're already within that you want to grow within, that you want to capitalize on with this funding within the next 1 to 2 years, even your SAM as the next 2 to 5 years, and then the TAM being like, if you were to turn into like the leading company in the world, and what market, what is the total addressable market that you would really want to go after. But again, another way for market sizing is communicating total spending by geographic area. I think it's extremely strong. And again, I highly recommend doing things differently, even though this is not gonna come up like in, again, all of the boilerplate information that you're gonna find online or at universities. It's not. But I'm asking you to trust me that it's okay. That you can be different and just use it as a tool for communication. Okay, let's keep going. What's another way you can size your market? You can communicate what markets you'll reach with the funding. Okay, so this is like another lens to look at it with, right? How do I tell a story with my market sizing? And then, of course, make sure that that is built within the financial model as well and is married to the financial model. Sometimes we tell a story of like, hey, without funding, this is our SOM. Like, this is where we are, this is where we live, everything's good now. With this funding, these are the new markets that we can enter and that we plan on going after. This is our growth strategy. And with all the funding in the world, if we were to become the leading company, right, that would be able to address and capture this entire market, this is the addressable market that we see. Another way, how product development unlocks new potential. I love this one, and this is great for technical people, right? Because sometimes you have a company and it's tech focused, it's focused around a product, and your product only has so many features, right? And with the features that you have today, right, today's product can only reach this market, this serviceable, obtainable market. But with funding and with building the full V1 of the platform, we can expand our market opportunity to this addressable market, the SAM. And again, if we were that leading, amazing company, we built a full platform that could address like everything, all the stakeholders within this entire market. This is the TAM that we eventually see ourselves going after 5 to 10 years from now. And again, the point is, it's just another tool for you to pitch your vision, for you to get the investor excited about what is the market that you can obtain today. Is it large enough? And what are you going to go after next? Okay, that's where SOM and SAM become so important and so exciting, right? It's not just something that you need to include within your pitch to check the box. And it's especially why just having a really large TAM number with a really decent growth strategy, right? Compound annual growth rate, sorry, not growth strategy, with a great growth rate. And 4% is like, it's good, right? Like, let's say, sorry, I should have made it 14%. Let's say it's a $15 billion TAM with a 14% CAGR. It just communicates nothing. It just communicates nothing. Please, please, please don't do it. Okay, let's keep going. And inversely, another pitch to give is that if you have a SOM that is below $100 million, know that this is communicating to investors that your market isn't big enough. That what you are going after what you are fundraising for, the product that you want to build isn't going to scale large enough because the market isn't large enough for them to receive a return on their investment. Okay, the market is too small in their opinion. Some investors may disagree, but 100 million is typically kind of the threshold for this is a market where this product can really scale, where I can actually see a return on my investment. So that's kind of the magic number. Hold on to. Okay, now we're nearing, where are we?
You're good.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. How does the financial model tell a good story? These are, first of all, just saying again, revenue projections on their own communicates nothing. It just does. Don't share that with the investor. In today's market, a financial model tells a good story when it shows that you know your costs and you know exactly how much funding you need to execute. Your business model is sound and can preserve cash. Okay, why? Startups, many startups fail, right? The rate is like 90%, 95%, whatever it is. A large portion of why startups fail is because they run out of cash. This is why you can't just go into your pitch with a revenue projection, because it's telling the investor all that matters in the world is that we're going to generate revenue, right? Wrong. No, they want to see a full-on cash flow statement. They want to see and make sure that you have a model that will preserve cash, because if you run out of cash, then you're in big trouble. You are likely to fail, and it turns into this never-ending pitfall of needing to raise follow-on capital in order to be successful. And you don't want to need to raise additional money in order to survive. You want to raise additional money to grow fast. So that's a different story. You're not raising capital to survive. You're raising capital to grow faster. So telling your model telling that story that, hey, and look, okay, right? Like, this model is sound, it's sustainable, it's going to preserve cash, is going to go a long way with your investors. So again, why going through that exercise with financial modeler is going to be really important for you, or with a fractional CFO or whoever. It's a really important exercise for you to go through. In today's market as well, that you have a clear path to profitability. We are no longer in a time where people are going to continue raising astronomical amounts of money for money pits, essentially, for startups that have like massive potential and overinflated valuations, and are just going to burn cash as fast as possible to capture as much market share as possible without being profitable for 6 seconds, right? Like the WeWork story. Investors are over it. They don't want it. They're tired of hearing, right, the storyline of we're going to be the next unicorn, and the financial model that proves and shows that they're going to be the next unicorn, even though they'll, right, like be cash negative for however long. Like, it's just not the right story anymore. Investors are really looking for founders who are concerned with profitability and see a clear path to profitability. And at this early stage, something to think about and walk away with is like, okay, you may not become profitable with this round of funding, right? Because you're so early, but can you build a model that has your break even in mind, right? Like, that shows when you are going to break even, or when you're expected to break even. That is expressing and telling a story to the investor that, hey, we have a clear path to profitability, or we have a clear path at least to hitting break even with this funding for 12 to 18 months, or with our next, after this funding, or with our next round, right? So again, putting it into perspective at this early stage. And these are some last points. Yeah, okay. Another reason why you can't just share revenue projections, and why that's a bunch of hot air is because you're also saying no risk. There are no key assumptions that I need to include within this model that will lower my revenue over time, or again, like any kind of attrition rates or turnover rates with employees and stuff like that. So that's why revenue projection is just a bunch of hot air. You want to, as an exercise for yourself, identifying all of the key risks within your startup, figuring out how to mitigate those risks, and then building that within your model, building that within your milestone timeline, within your execution strategy for how you're going to mitigate all those key risks, tells a very strong story, especially in today's market. And these are, again, I repeated myself. Oops, I probably meant to change that. I got so close through this entire presentation without a flip. So we'll ignore that last one because I've already said it. But yeah, again, last point, just your market entry and your growth strategy, how it impacts revenue, right? So again, having that super clear execution strategy, which is where your journey really needs to begin when it comes to fundraising, understanding how you want to grow, scale, what you're raising money for, and how it impacts revenue is really how a financial model is going to tell a good story within today's market. So yeah, with that, I think I've said it all. I'm sorry, I didn't realize time flies when you're having a good time. I hope that was educational and helpful. Please let us know if you have any questions in the chat.
And we have time for questions. So if anybody has a burning question, now would be a great time to put it in chat or raise your hand, and you can ask the question yourself. No questions? Jasmine, you did an outstanding. Oh, Chris Bailey has a question.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks for your talk today. It was really, really awesome as an entrepreneur to listen to this. How do entrepreneurs work with Pitch Genius, and how do we approach you about, and is it even worth it for us? And what kind of startups are you looking for your business?
Yeah, definitely. You have to decide whether it's worth it for yourself. So definitely go to our website, Pitch Genius, and just schedule a discovery call. It'll go directly on my calendar if you want to speak with me, and we can talk about what our options are and how we can work together. So yeah, let me, I hope that answers your question. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know.
Terrific. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Jasmine, there's a question as to the number of slides in a pitch deck. And, I think that depends obviously on what kind of deck it is, but could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 22 to 24 is great. That's what we refer to as the full reading deck. So if you can go into your fundraising 22 to 24, we land at 23 slides. That is your full pitch. Fantastic. But you're not going to send all of those slides at once, especially when you're just touching base with an investor. You're going to want to pick like 12, maybe 15 of those slides out of that, and share that first. So yeah, those numbers are in line. And again, if you have like a never-ending appendix to support you as you get questions from investors, that's fine, but you would never share like anything more than than those 23 slides, and then before that the 12 to 15 slides to start.
Thank you. There's a question here. Where in your pitch can you state uncertainties that you would like to get feedback on from your investors? In your opinion, how do you communicate your willingness to learn?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually, my recommendation is to be super transparent with like problems and or not problems in your business, but like things that you are looking for advice on, right? Like if there's a gap in your business model, or if there's like a really big problem to solve, or risk that needs to be mitigated that you're grappling with, that you're trying to figure out, being forthcoming to the investor to say, this is a key risk that we've identified in our business, because they will ask you, what are the key risks within this business? So it's a perfect time to bring it on and be like, hey, these are the key risks that we have identified, but we're speaking with like 3 different consultants, or like we're already trying to identify the advisor that's going to help us through this problem. Or if you know anyone, right? Don't hesitate to throw that out there. If you know anyone that you can connect this with, that would be fantastic, right? You're not meant to go into the pitch with all of the right answers. That's not what I'm expressing here. There will be things that you don't know. And the extent of the hot air is like, you ultimately are going to raise for this plan, but things may change once you actually hit the market. All of that is okay. And I definitely bringing it up and being transparent about things that you're struggling with, like they may just be able to help you, or they may see it as like a opportunity for even more strategic alignment as them being your investors, because they can really help you fix the problem. I hope that from this perspective.
And great answer. What were the 3 types of decks you mentioned?
Teaser deck, presentation deck, and a full reading deck.
Great, absolutely. And are VCs receptive to a mailed presentation with a sample of the device?
Yes, why not? I mean, try it. Why not? If you can find their address, I think maybe they'd be a little concerned. I don't think that they would say no. Like if it's like a product that you want them to try out, I've had some food and beverage people. I mean, because obviously, like the investor is going to like the taste of the drink or the taste of the pancake or whatever it is. Like they'll send out product. I think that's completely normal and fine. I would just be weary of not creeping them out by having their address, because typically you can find their email address, and that's fine. Like that's a layer of being able to find information online. But the address is a different thing. Lena, what do you think?
I would be wary of sending product or samples too early in the process.
That's an even better answer. Yeah, like don't let that be your opening. Don't let that be your teaser pitch, right? To get them to book a meeting. It's a bit much. It's too much.
So I'm gonna we'll end with this last question. This is from Brandon, and Brandon's the CEO of a very early stage startup.
Yeah.
How do I tell a compelling story for a product that is early on and doesn't have strong traction numbers yet?
Yeah, you tell a compelling story about the market potential and the market opportunity, right? It's okay that you're not there yet, but and also like whatever traction you do have, right? Is there enough to prove that you've validated your market? So you may not have the numbers that they want to see, but your story lies in the fact that you've validated the market because you've generated some revenue, and also lies in all the market potential that you see and you believe that you can achieve with some additional.
Super answer. Thank you very much, Jasmine. Thank you all for being an attentive audience today.